Y'all want to see Leonardo DiCaprio with a daughter that he's not dating? Y'all gotta watch one battle after another. Its relevancy in today's America is chilling.
I gotta say that this movie might give Sinners a run during the Oscar season. I think Sinners deserves all the accolades, but Chase Infiniti and Teyana Taylor were a joy to watch. Perfidia Beverly Hills and Ghetto Pat are both members of the French 75, a political group that believes in a violent revolution. Some members are Jungle Kitty, Howard Somerville, and Deandra, but you know her as Brenda. During one of their missions at the US-Mexico border, Perfidia meets Captain Stephen J. Lockjaw. She declares war against the government and demands free borders, free bodies, and free choices. But the altercation makes Lockjaw pitch a tent, which makes Perfidia angrier. Outside, Ghetto Pat fires off his bombs, declaring war on what he calls an imperialist state and fascist regime. This is starting to sound too familiar. It doesn't end there. The group keeps launching their attacks one after another. Ghetto Pat makes the bombs, and the others act out their plans. They even bombed a hotel to protest the abortion ban. In all of these, Pat and Perfidia continue to be a powerhouse couple of the revolution. During one of their missions, Lockjaw sees Perfidia again, and the mayonnaise can't help but get all giddy. He gets disappointed when he sees Ghetto Pat get so close to Perfidia. So during one of the group's attacks, Lockjaw corners Perfidia and tells her that if she wants to continue what she's doing, she'll meet him at a hotel. So Perfidia obliges and gives Lockjaw a lockjaw. Sometime after, Perfidia starts to look very pregnant, and Ghetto Pat can't be happier. But how you know the baby's yours? Then Perfidia gives birth. She gets depressed and thinks Pat no longer loves her as he used to. She starts to get jealous of her own baby. One night, she decides to leave to get back to her revolution. Pat reminds her that they have a family now, but Perfidia refuses to be held back. The next day, the French 75 launches an attack at a bank. While outside, Lockjaw approaches Pat and asks about his child.
You like black girls? I love them. I love them.
Nicki Minaj might like him. The conversation confuses Pat as much as it scares him. During the robbery, Perfidia shoots a security guard dead. It surprises even her members that they all escape right after. The authorities chase them, and Perfidia gets cornered and arrested. Her arrest is celebrated by the police. At the hospital, Lockjaw tells Perfidia that she'll probably serve 30 to 40 years in prison. So Perfidia pretends to be in love with him, so he'll save her. Lockjaw then insists that to be saved, Perfidia has to name the members of the French 75. She initially refuses, but soon gives in. Sometimes same-skin folk aren't kinfolk. After her arrest, Pat and their daughter Charlene need to go into hiding. Howard hands Pat 2 trust devices that go off when they are near each other. Then he gives him the revolutionary password to memorize and reveals their new identities. From now on, Pat and Charlene will go by Bob and Willa Ferguson. Howard reminds Pat not to get phones and that they will be living in Backtan Cross. As for Perfidia, she is now a state witness. After the identities of the French 75 members are revealed, they are either killed or arrested. Lockjaw is awarded the Bedford Forest Medal of Honor because of his role in the arrests. Now that Perfidia is basically free, Lockjaw proceeds to court her. But when he visits her house, he finds out that Perfidia has run away. Feeling used, Lockjaw is burning with rage. But because she has ratted on her friends, Perfidia has no one to go home to. 16 years later, Charlene, now known as Willa, is already a young woman. She's just a normal high schooler taking martial arts classes from Sensei Sergio. Pat, now Bob, is drowning in alcohol and drugs. Lockjaw is now a colonel, and he is interested in joining the Christmas Adventurers Club, a white supremacist group. They are composed of members dedicated to keeping their own kind pure and supreme above all. Yeah, because this is supreme. There's an opening, so members Sandy and Virgil proceed to interview Lockjaw. One of the questions is if Lockjaw has been in an interracial relationship, but Fitz dated Olivia Pope. Lockjaw is to undergo a study to be qualified to even be considered. On his way out, Lockjaw realizes his past connection with Perfidia will be a problem. Howard still continues to fight in his own way as a member of the French 75 until one day he is taken by a bounty hunter. The kids in the area immediately send an SOS to members of the resistance to warn them. Lockjaw's right-hand man, Colonel Danvers, demands the location of Pat and Charlene. Howard refuses to cooperate, but soon gives in when Danvers threatens his sister. The information is passed to Lockjaw, who proceeds to find a reason to get deployed in Backtown Cross. The soldiers are told that a fast food restaurant in Bakhtan is a front for a huge-scale heroin distribution. Even local law enforcement is to clear and secure other restaurants in the area. On the day of the operations, Bob and Willa are clueless of what's to come. Like a regular day, Willa scolds her father for driving drunk, and Bob just argues back. Coincidentally, it's the day of Willa's high school dance, and her friends came to pick her up.
Now, is that a he or a she or a they?
Bob refuses to let Willa leave without her trust device. While at school, the device starts to play a melody. Then Deandra walks in and recites the French 75 code. Because Bob has taught it to her, Willa manages to say it back. Bob has also told her to trust anyone who says the code to her. So despite not knowing the famous Brenda, Willa believes her when she says she's in trouble. They leave the school before the military gets there. Meanwhile, Bob receives a phone call telling him that everything is going wrong. He has asked for the greeting code, but it's been 16 years, so Bob no longer remembers it. Out of frustration, the woman reveals that Lockjaw is on the way to Bakhtan and that Willa has already been extracted and is in transport. She adds that the rendezvous point hasn't changed, but Bob no longer remembers where the rendezvous point is. By the time Lockjaw arrives at Bob's house, Bob has already escaped through the tunnel under his bed. Afterward, he calls the number of the resistance and asks them where the rendezvous point is. However, they need a password, and Bob no longer remembers that. He can hardly remember the last time he dated anyone over 25. So the phone call ends with Bob still clueless where to find Willa. The military has started searching and securing the target restaurants. With no other options, Bob asks Sergio for help. Bob reveals that he used to be part of the French 75, and now he and Willa are in trouble. Danvers and his team stop the dance to search for Willa. He pressures her friends for information, and one of them eventually gives in and reveals Willa's phone number.
Now, is that a he or a she or a they?
Sergio takes Bob to his place, where he and his family hide and help immigrants. Outside, protests are ongoing, and Lockjaw orders some men to attack the military to make it look like the protesters have started the fight. Then he orders his men to start making arrests. At Sergio's house, Bob calls the resistance again, but the man on the other end of the line still asks for the password. Lucky for Bob, the man's commanding officer is his old friend, Talleyrand. Tally helps Bob and tells him that the rendezvous point is at the Sisters of the Brave Beaver. By the time the military reaches Sergio's house, the immigrants are already in the tunnel. Sergio has asked his men to help Bob escape through the roof. Then he hands Bob his rifle. Unfortunately, Bob falls off a building and gets arrested. When Deandra realizes Willa has a phone, she immediately throws it away. But it's too late because the military has tracked it already. At the rendezvous point, Deandra asks the nuns for refuge. But the nuns worry that Willa is a rat like her mother. Some of the members of the Christmas Adventurers Club call a man named Tim. Tim is also a member and an expert in his field. Virgil explains that according to a testimony of a member of the French 75 from 15 years ago, Lockjaw has fathered a mixed-race child. The file says it's with Perfidia, a black woman. After connecting Lockjaw's actions in Bakhtan Cross, the members have figured out that Lockjaw is planning to get rid of the child so there won't be any evidence of his affair. By doing so, he can finally join the white supremacist group. So now they asked him to get rid of Lockjaw and his daughter. Willa is now training and Brenda got her using a machine gun. Meanwhile, Bob gives a false name to the authorities and he's taken to a hospital for a checkup. There, nurses who are Sergio's allies help him escape. Outside, Sergio is already waiting for him. Lockjaw and his team have found the Church of the Sisters of the Brave Beaver. They arrest everyone, and Lockjaw finally meets Willa for the first time. Deandra is offered a deal if she reveals where Bob is, but Deandra stands her ground until the end. Brenda has always been a good ride or die. Meanwhile, using a DNA testing device, Lockjaw discovers that Willa is his biological child. Willa suspects that the colonel took advantage of her mother, but Lockjaw insists that he did love Perfidia. However, he also reveals that the club he's joining is more important to him than Willa. Unfortunately, Sergio's car catches the police's attention, so he has to drop Bob before they even reach their destination. Bob steals a car and makes his way to the church alone. Using Sergio's rifle, he tries shooting Lockjaw but misses. The army fires back, but Bob manages to escape. Lockjaw meets with the bounty hunter, Avanti, and tells him to get rid of Willa. But Avanti refuses to kill a kid, so Lockjaw orders him to bring Willa to 1776, a private army, so they can do the job. Deandra is taken away and Sergio gets pulled over by the police. Bob finds Lockjaw's car and chases it, unaware that Willa is in a different car already. Right after handing Willa over, Lockjaw notices someone following him. When the window rolls down, Tim shoots Lockjaw in the face, and the Colonel's car crashes. By the time Bob arrives at the scene, Lockjaw is already dead, and Willa is nowhere to be found. Avanti hands Willa over to the 1776, but just a few minutes in, and he changes his mind. He frees Willa and starts shooting at the private armed group. He kills them, but he also dies in the process. Willa then steals Avanti's car and drives away. Soon after leaving, Willa sees a car following her. She stops the vehicle and hides with her gun. Tim gets surprised and crashes his car into Willa's. When he gets out, Willa chants the French 75's code, ordering Tim to say it back. When Tim doesn't, Willa shoots him dead. Just then, Bob arrives. Even though she sees that it's Bob, Willa recites the code and forces him to say it back. So Bob does. He says that he's her dad and there's no reason for her to be scared. So Willa puts down the gun and runs to him. Then they return home together. It turns out Lockjaw is still alive. Sometime after the shooting, he goes on a background check interview for the club. When asked if he had a romantic relationship with Perfidia, Lockjaw insists that he was assaulted. He explains that he was drugged and taken advantage of by Perfidia. Ain't nobody want to touch an albino raisin, but he sort of looks better with that deformity. After the interview, Lockjaw is officially welcomed to the White Supremacist Club, and he is taken to his office. A few minutes in, and he is gassed inside. His body is taken and cremated right away. Back at home, Bob hands Willa a letter from her mom. In the letter, Perfidia admits she thinks of Willa the whole time and wishes she'd been strong enough for the two of them. She also reveals that she failed in changing the world, and now she hopes that Willa will be the one to make everything right. Sometime after that, Willa finds her own kind of revolution. She joins protests to make her voice heard, and Bob continues to be a loving dad to her. This was such a treat of a movie. You really have to check it out because the camera work, the action scenes and acting was just perfecto. Chase Infiniti has a bright future ahead of her. What did y'all think of this one?
Did you guys enjoy that one? Make sure to subscribe and keep watching for more. I won't judge. You can click here or here.